Letitia defeated again. And this one's a doozy, guys. This one is a big, big deal. Welcome to the program. I am Trish Regan. It's good to have you here. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. Unbelievable. Judge Chutkan just coming out, like within the last hour, rejecting the call from Democrat AGs all over the country for a temporary restraining order blocking DOGE's access to federal data. Now, this is different than actually what we saw yesterday, right? It's coming in layers here. This is pretty bad for them. Okay, this is pretty bad because she's out there, Letitia James, saying no one elected Elon Musk. They can't have access to this. And the judge is like, you actually really haven't shown us why he shouldn't have access. I mean, he's an employee, right, of the federal sort of government. Donald Trump has asked him to do this and lead this charge. Therefore, how can you say this? Here's Letitia, grandstanding the other day, having this total, complete meltdown. Just wait till what she's going to do now.
No one elected Elon Musk and his minions, and no one has allowed him to have access to this information. This is a violation of the separation of powers. The United States Congress, the United States Senate, has the sole discretion in having the power of the purse, and not Elon Musk. We are here today to seek a preliminary injunction to stand up against those forces who believe that they can unilaterally have power and have control, all in the hands of the President of these United States.
So much for that, Letitia. Maybe you should have actually refined your legal arguments a little bit more before you charge forward, trying to present this one against Judge Chutkan. And this is, to remind you guys, a Biden appointee coming forward and saying, no, you didn't prove, basically, that this was a problem. There was no harm that you could really show. I mean, they wanted to say, okay, there's no way that Elon Musk can possibly access government information systems at the Office of Personnel Management, the Department of Education, the Department of Labor, Department of HHS, Health and Human Services, Department of Energy, Department of Transportation, I go on, Commerce, and they say, oh, this isn't right, this is violation of our privacies, but guess what? The judge said, you guys didn't show that you're going to actually suffer imminent, irreparable harm absence a temporary restraining order. So they wanted this temporary restraining order because already, right, the judge, this happened yesterday, had decided that she wasn't going to rule on this overall. So they came back and said, no, we need this temporary restraining order. This is what just went down within the last 24 hours. This happened in the last couple hours, remember?
He's tasked with the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, Elon Musk. A federal judge has just declined to issue an order halting Elon Musk and DOGE from accessing federal data and slashing personnel. Attorneys general from 14 states are attempting to stop Musk and DOGE from accessing data in 7 federal agencies and from firing or putting on leave employees in those agencies. U.S. court.
Boom. Okay. So that was about 24 hours ago or so. And then this is like fresh, hot off the presses, the latest and greatest. I mean, my gosh. I will tell you this, in some ways it's really, really good that Donald Trump had that time, if you would, to be on the sidelines. Because during that time on the sidelines, what we found is that his team refined all their legal arguments and they're coming ready and prepared, able to do all this stuff. And you've got Letitia James, who told us she was ready for this moment, right? Did we not have to hear that over and over again? She's not ready. She was never ready because you know what? She's not smart enough. God, I won't say it.
With other Democratic AGs across this country to make sure that we would be ready to respond to any attempt to roll back our rights. So here we are. We've studied their platforms. We've identified certain possibilities, fact patterns. We've created contingency plans. So no matter what the next administration throws at us, we're ready.
Yeah, or so you thought. Again, Judge Chutkan rejecting calls from Democrat AGs, including one Letitia James, to put a temporary restraining order on DOGE, which means DOGE can move forward with these mass firings as they try and slim down the government to make it more nimble and ready. And no, it's not against the Constitution, Letitia.
Payments to the state of New York and to states all across this nation. It is unacceptable, unconstitutional, ultra-vires. They have exceeded their authority. And so it's important that attorneys general representing our respective states stand up and enforce the rule of law, because Elon Musk, individuals at the Treasury, and the President of these United States is not above the law. And we will continue.
Okay, you continue, but I'm just going to point something out. You're not above the law either. And you know what? There is a law. There is a law that enables the federal government, that would be Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4 of the Constitution. There is this little law that says the U.S. government, the feds, are in charge of the U.S. border. And hey, Letitia, just in case you had any doubt whatsoever, just to remind you of this little thing called the Supremacy Clause, right? The Supremacy Clause, which puts the federal government as the supreme law of the land. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. And by the way, the states can go on and on and on about all their different laws as they pertain to immigration, but it gets you right back to the fact that the federal power most definitely has the final say, if you would, the final say when it comes to immigration. All of this really coming to a head. I want to play some sound. This actually is of Jonathan Turley, who's a really, really smart guy when it comes to constitutional law. And he was talking about this issue as we got the initial wave of news on Fox just yesterday. Let's listen in.
Where do you think
Sandra.
this all goes next? I mean, this seems to be the moment for DOGE. How will it go legally?
Well, I love the fact that one of these arguments occurred on President's Day. It's a sort of reminder that we actually do have a president. There's someone who is in charge of the executive branch. And you have states and judges, that is a few, that have seemed to have forgotten that. But you're now beginning to see judges come to a more sober realization. I've been mystified by many of these challenges. In my view, the president has this authority. They can see these records. It's a bizarre type of argument, Sandra, sort of the Bernie Madoff approach to government efficiency. You can go ahead and reform, but don't look at the books. I mean, they obviously need to look at the receipts. They need to look at where the money has gone in order to make these judgments, and they seem to be finding a great deal of waste. And I think that judges that aggressively try to prevent that are likely to be reversed. And Sandra, I think that when they got Judge Chutkan, who is viewed as not exactly supportive of President Trump, they thought this would be a slam dunk. But even Judge Chutkan, they said, look, I don't understand. Where's my authority here, and where's the imminent harm?
It's incredibly telling the way the judge responded here. Here's the words of the judge on the lawsuit from the 14 states, Jonathan, challenging Elon Musk and DOGE, saying, quote, the building will be demolished and there will be something that can't be undone. The things that I'm hearing are serious and troubling indeed, but you're saying these are things that we're hearing. I'm not seeing it so far, Jonathan.
Right. What she is seeing and what we're all seeing is what a president does when they come into office. Now, it's true that President Trump is being more aggressive. Most people run for this office about shrinking government and then forget once they become the government. That's not the case here. I mean, he went and got someone who is famous for downsizing. He did that at X, and they are proceeding along those lines. What's curious about the protest of many of these members is that a lot of these voices were the same ones in the name of democracy that wanted to prevent voters from being able to vote for Donald Trump, who ultimately won both houses and a majority of votes. And now in the name of democracy, they're arguing that they should be able to slow down or stymie or even prevent some of the things that he ran on.
Think about that, okay? I mean, what Turley said is absolutely spot on. You have this team of people that are trying to basically suffocate Donald Trump and all his supporters. They wanted to make sure that he could not get elected under any circumstances. They failed over and over and over again. And now here we are coming out on the other side. And he's like, okay, I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cut that. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cut that. And DOGE is exposing every single bit of it. and it's gross, right? Like the spending is positively disgusting and gross, and they're your tax dollars. And we're finding this out. And then they're standing in the way of it? What a bunch of morons. I mean, just think about it, politically speaking, even. Stephen Miller, who's a special advisor, policy advisor to the president, and a really bright guy and understands this from a legal perspective and has spent the last 4 years understanding it and studying it. He was on CNN today saying, look, I realize you guys, you don't like it when the government isn't, dare I say, like paying its bills to you? I don't know. I mean, everything's come out with USAID, and I sort of wonder, how much is CNN getting? Is that why they were so perturbed? That's why they were so concerned that Donald Trump not win no matter what? Here's Miller.
I understand that even a temporary interruption in federal employment is a great crisis and catastrophe for you and for CNN. What the American people see is a government that is finally delivering a promise of accountability under President Trump. You want to have a conversation about transparency. Let me ask you a question. Do you have any idea where the $22 billion that the Department of Health and Human Services provided to illegal aliens under Joe Biden is right now? $22 billion with a B. That's enough to provide a free house to every homeless veteran in America. Where's the $22 billion? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Joe Biden just spent it, and now it's gone. Transparency begins with having an accounting of where every federal dollar is spent. And God bless President Trump for leading this effort.
Like, why are they mad about that? Think about it. The only reason you'd be mad about it, right, is unless you're trying to protect some kind of corruption. Alex Karp, who is the CEO of Palantir, big tech company, he was on CNBC saying, look, I'm really disappointed in my party. I used to identify as a Democrat. I don't anymore. And this party, like, can't get out of its own way. They are on the wrong side of this issue. Dead wrong.
Look, what I don't like about what's going on, any of you really believe, what I don't like about what's going on is I just view this as, well, let's watch the Democratic Party commit suicide. And like, I've been a Democrat most of my life. I kind of view myself as outside it, but I don't like watching the Democrats just commit suicide. And what I see is most of the country doesn't really, at this point, given the fraud, waste, and abuse we know is there, 90% of the country is like, get rid of that fraud, waste, and abuse. And I just view this as yet another example of the progressive left boxing themselves into a suicide dance. Now, what the progressive left should be doing is saying, okay, Elon, you're clearly the most qualified person in the world to do something like this. We want to dialogue with you about how you're doing and what are you doing. I don't believe that's actually what happened. And again, I like Elon. I know I think he's obviously the most important builder in the world. And I just think, if you want to say my former side, I don't believe that they're actually engaging. I think it's like another dance where I'm supposed to say, of course, like whatever. It's like there's this one issue where I might, and then you get boxed into you cannot solve the problem. And then I would say, what is the biggest problem in this society? Biggest problem in this society, from my perspective, is legitimacy of our institutions. Why aren't they legitimate? They're not legitimate because, okay, do any of you really believe that 99% of your taxpayer dollars are being spent? But last and not least, and probably arguably most importantly, there's two revolutions happening. One is transparency and one is AI. Okay, so why is it that we do not know where every penny of our money goes? Like, how do you explain that to people? And by the way, slightly more technically, what large language models do is you can go into the contracts and see exactly what happened. So in the past, we couldn't do this. Now we can. The right response is, we want this to happen. We want to happen. We want to be involved in the dialogue. The real response is, it feels like the people criticizing Elon don't want it to happen. And this is going to destroy those people.
Yes, right? Because if any of these people had a clue or were not corrupt, dare I say, they'd actually want all this exposed. I mean, Elon's going to save the taxpayers a lot of money. Why would you stand in the way of that? Except it's TDS, right? Trump derangement syndrome. They can't shake it. It's all they got, for God's sakes. This woman, Letitia James, has based her entire political existence on Trump derangement syndrome. She doesn't know how to how to do anything else other than to attack him. And so she's going back to the well. And guess what? The courts are telling her again, honey, you got no there. There's nothing there for you. And yet she has only one playbook.
Under my leadership, my office sued Donald Trump over 100 times. And the basis of all of that was Project 2025. So he cannot distance himself from something that he has attempted to implement when he was president of these United States. And we were successful 70% of the time. We were the firewall, Democratic attorney generals.
Yeah, well, you were really not successful on this one. And you had a judge that should have loved you, right? She didn't like Trump. She wants to help you out, Letitia, and you're just on the wrong side of the law. You got no basis for anything, but you were busy there during the last administration filing hundreds of lawsuits. And then when you had him leave office, you filed more, right? Because you wanted to bankrupt the guy. That was your mission. You politicized everything, and instead of taking care of your city, you just went after Trump. Think of how messed up that is, guys. I mean, and you know what? This was not lost on Pam Bondi. She's been noticing this for some time.
I think in New York, to specifically talk about New York and to talk about Attorney General Letitia James, instead of sitting in a courtroom going after Donald Trump on bogus civil fraud cases, she should be out on the streets of New York with all of law enforcement. She's the chief law enforcement officer in New York. She should be out there condemning this, stopping this, calling for the arrest of these people who are vandalizing police cars. There are cameras all over New York City. They can catch these people. Look what Mayor Giuliani did to clean up New York, Manhattan, when he was mayor.
Okay, but Letitia didn't want to, right? Because all she could do was think about and salivate over going after Trump. And this is the ABC News clip where she was like, I'm going to take his assets. If he doesn't have the money, with $500 million, she wants to charge the guy $500 million for something that is not illegal in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I'm still waiting on the appeals court, for goodness sakes. Court of Appeals, you know them, out of New York. Unbelievable. Judith Vale, who was representing Letitia James, they told her before she even spoke that she had no case. So where are they?
May it please the court, Judith Vale for the New York Attorney General's office. All of the defendants repeatedly violated...
Ms. Vale, can you identify any previous case in which the Attorney General sued under Executive Law 6312 to upset a private business transaction that was between equally sophisticated partners, where the supposed victim had the ability and legal obligation to discover the allegedly misrepresented matters by conducting its own due diligence, where the supposed wrongdoer advised the supposed victim through written disclaimers to conduct its own due diligence and to draw its own conclusions, where the alleged misrepresentation almost entirely concerned inherently subjective valuations of properties and businesses.
Yes.
And where the victim never complained about any fraud in the transactional losses from it. Because I've gone through the cases which you've cited, and all of them always involved the consumer protection aspect. It involved protection of the market.
Well, several responses.
And I want to add to his question, and little to no impact on the public marketplace.
Okay, so she had no case. She had no case. We're still waiting on the Court of Appeals in New York to throw that one out. But Letitia James was going forward with everything she had. She wanted to seize his assets.
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
That's what she wanted to do, seize his assets. She wanted to go run into Trump Tower and take it over because this is all she had, right? Think of the campaign.
He's called me venomous. We will fight back to your attempt to bring Trumpism to New York City. He's called me disgraceful. Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat. He's called me radical.
Listen, we know he's crazy. We know he doesn't have a sound mind. We know he's out of control. We know he's losing it. We know his days are numbered and we will come together.
He's called
Well, now your days are numbered. Letitia James getting a big defeat, along with all the other attorney generals that joined her, as Judge Chutkan rejects calls from these Democrat attorney generals to get a temporary restraining order. She already had said, I really can't rule on this overall in terms of DOGE coming in and shutting down all your funding. She's punting on that one. So then they say, okay, can we get a temporary restraining order so at least they're not firing these people, etc.? And she said no. I mean, unbelievable. And Letitia's sitting there going, but wait, they can't turn off our funding? Like, that's New York funding. This is unconstitutional. How can they do this?
payments to the state of New York and to states all across this nation. It is unacceptable, unconstitutional, ultra-vires. They have exceeded their authority. And so it's important that attorneys general representing our respective states stand up and enforce the rule of law.
Okay, but here's the problem. You don't have any backing now from any court. And, I'll tell you, Tish, we should call this segment Trish versus Tish. You don't have a leg to stand on because here's the evidence. I mean, you're no better than Ilhan Omar, who they're looking to deport. Maybe that's a little bit of a misnomer. We'll talk about that because Brendan Gill, the congressman from Texas, is all over this with Ilhan Omar because she's trying to give these seminars and webinars showing people how you can ice out the feds. Letitia James is doing the exact same thing. Okay, the exact same thing, which puts her in violation of federal law. Here she is. New York has laws that protect immigrants and limit cooperation with federal enforcement efforts. Those laws should be followed by law enforcement officials in our state. So she's telling her law enforcement officials to do that. And yet, if they do that, they are directly in violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. The federal government's trying to come in and shore up this whole immigration thing. That is what Donald Trump was put in office to do, and he has the authority to do it, courtesy of, one, the Constitution, and second, the Supremacy Clause in the Constitution. Okay, so this is not that hard. This actually isn't a constitutional crisis of any sort. The law is really clear. Letitia just apparently doesn't understand it. I think she went to Harvard Law School. Maybe she skipped her constitutional law class. Here's the thing, Tish, they don't qualify for asylum. All these people that have come into New York that you're handing out $350 checks, the mayor put an end to that, you see, and they're really mad at him about that. And the hotels where you get daily maid service, come on. $200 million going to a hotel that's actually owned by Pakistan? That would be the Roosevelt Hotel. They're in Midtown. Look, you have to qualify for asylum, okay? And if you don't qualify for asylum, then guess what? If you came into the country and you overstayed your visa, or if you just came into the country illegally, then you're here illegally. And that would make you in violation of the law because it's very clear cut. I've talked to you guys about this before, right? These are the qualifications for asylum. This is all spelled out. And unless you're going to change that, Letitia, you don't have a leg to stand on. Like, you have nothing to stand on. And yes, Pam Bondi can cut off all the money and Treasury can cut off all the money because you are not following the law. In the U.S., asylum is defined under 8 U.S.C. 1158 and aligns with the 1951 Refugee Convention and the 1967 Protocol. To qualify for asylum, you must be able to prove that you've been persecuted or you have a fear of persecution and that you are on protected grounds. In other words, that persecution needs to be based on race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or you're a member of a particular social group. So you can't just come here because you're seeking a better economic future, as much as some of these people there in New York City, like Tish James, would like to believe. No, it works a whole lot differently than that. You have to actually qualify for the asylum program. Quick shout out to 76 Research, my company, financial research company. I encourage you to check it out. Code word dollar, DOLLAR. Go to 76 Research. We get lots of picks, lots of information. You can subscribe to the 76 Report and get that for $1 a month right now for the first 2 months. Introductory offer. I encourage you to check it out. All happening as Ilhan Omar is increasingly in bigger and bigger and bigger trouble. And it has a little something to do, well, with her going out and offering some instruction, much like AOC, to the illegals in her community. And she's doing this in her language. I'm just going to show you a quick clip.
Soomaalida and haddii ay maxaa la dhahaa ii sheeg ICE.
Okay, so she's saying if ICE attempts to question you, then you are not obligated to answer their questions. Just state that you are advised by a lawyer not to answer questions, she says, and she goes on here trying to instruct this whole room full of people. Disclosure of your name, immigration status, and the mode of entry is not mandatory. So this just happened a couple of weeks ago. Learn the laws and prepare yourself, says Ilhan Omar. Well, this has kind of created a little bit of a commotion, right? I mean, you have people that are kind of concerned that you have lawmakers that are basically flagrantly flaunting their disregard for the federal law. So it caught the attention of one congressman from Texas, newly minted congressman, Brandon Gill, who you may or may not know happens to be the son-in-law of a good friend of mine, Dinesh D'Souza, wonderful podcast. Anyway, here is Brandon Gill, Congressman Gill from Texas, on CNN. And there's been some commotion with people saying, oh, he wants her out of the country because she allegedly married the brother or something. And that apparently hasn't been proven. And he's like, no. I actually just want her to stop doing what she's doing in that little seminar that you just saw, but somehow the CNN anchor is kind of confused. This is an unbelievable clip, absolutely unbelievable. I have to show you.
I just want to follow up with this post that you had on X. You said that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, U.S. citizen, should be deported to her home country of Somalia. Omar became a naturalized citizen at 17. Why did you do that?
Well, listen, my colleague Ilhan Omar, she is an American citizen. She is a member of the House of Representatives. I didn't call for her to be deported, but I did say that America would be better off were she deported. I think that there is a serious problem, particularly given after the past 4 years of open borders, of Democrats facilitating the invasion of our country by illegal aliens. My colleague Ilhan Omar was advising illegal alien Somalis on how to evade ICE detection. That is as un-American as you can possibly get. It's unbecoming of a congressperson.
What evidence?
And I absolutely
where are
think
you
that
getting
it is
that from
disgusting.
specifically? Where are you getting that from specifically?
We have the audio of her doing that.
But do you think that
interview?
She is a duly elected member of Congress. Her constituents put her in office.
Okay, I'm just sorry. I have to jump in because this anchor person, I think she's replacing Acosta, Jim Acosta. She's really not all there, right? Like she's confusing. I think she's confusing. Where's the proof? She wants the proof about the alleged marriage with the brother, right? This proof of Ilhan Omar giving the instruction, the webinar, that's like everywhere. That's been out there, but she may be confusing the issues. She may just be incredibly ill-informed, whatever you want to call it. She's no match for Brandon. She kind of freaks out and she's just like, okay, the interview's over. Watch.
Member of Congress.
She has a duty
constituents
to uphold
put her
the
in
values
office.
and customs of America, not to represent foreign illegal aliens who shouldn't be here to begin with. And I think that raises serious questions.
Is helping people understand what the laws are. But listen,
that raises serious. To whom is she most loyal? Illegal.
How is she helping people understand the laws? No, the law is you can't be in the country. Thank you very much, unless you filed for asylum. And by the way, you're supposed to do that from your own country. And if you don't qualify for asylum, then you're here illegally. She's not helping people understand the law. She's helping people avoid the law.
Somalis are American citizens.
She's representing her
constituents.
Very
legitimate question.
As a member of Congress. Congressman Brandon Gill, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate this conversation. I think it's really important.
So do I.
And I think our viewers appreciate it as well. Thank you so much, Congressman, and look forward to having
She's representing her constituents. People who are here illegally are Ilhan Omar's constituents? CNN anchor lady? I don't think so. No. Her constituents should actually be the legal people that live there legally in her state, not a bunch of people that came in here illegally and are trying to avert ICE. I mean, you wonder what they're really trying to do here? You saw the headline in the New York Times a little while back. They were trying to get 800,000 non-citizens to be able to vote in local elections. They've done that in Berkeley, California. There's a method to the madness, you see, and it's got to actually stop. And by the way, Ilhan Omar is not the only one, okay? She's not the only one. Incidentally, Ilhan Omar had quite the comeback for Representative Gill. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. This is all they got. I mean, you've got Anderson Cooper calling Chris Sununu, former governor of New Hampshire, he used the D word on him on set when Sununu was like, hey, it's like kind of good that we're finding out where all the DOGE money's going. And this woman, Ilhan Omar, is resorting to calling Brandon Gill a dumbass, okay? Because he talked about how basically America would be better off without one Ilhan Omar here. Quote, how stupid you have been, or you have to be a member of Congress and think your colleague who is a member of Congress can be deported, she said. Quote, what a dumbass. I'm not a Nepo baby. I had to crawl my way into Congress, and I think these idiots who buy their seats have no idea what a privilege it is to be a member of Congress and what it takes. Wow. That's all she's got, okay? So they're resorting to silly name calling, whether it's Anderson Cooper calling Chris Sununu the D word, or whether it's Ilhan Omar trying to say that Brandon Gill is a dumbass because he's pointing out that, hey, maybe she ought not to be advising people on how they can get out of the ICE situation, out of the Fed's hands, should they be caught. That's really messed up. But again, it's happening over there with AOC. She's been doing the exact same thing.
We are on the eve of an authoritarian administration. This is what 21st century fascism is starting to look like.
No, it's not. I mean, fascism, authoritarianism, that was actually what we were seeing for the last 4 years, where you guys just would go after anyone that you felt was a threat to the status quo. And now we have somebody who's come in, and by the way, he's following through on all his promises, right? He said he would secure the border, and he said he would slash government spending and shore up the economy, and you guys just don't like it. So guess what? Tom Homan's looking at whether or not he can have her arrested. Pam Bondi's looking into this. Tom Homan has asked her. This came out just a few days ago. Watch.
Anymore. But Tom, you got AOC out there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman, putting out a webinar, doing a webinar to help illegals avoid, I guess, apprehension, giving tips about how to continue to remain in the country and ultimately game the system.
And I sent an email today to the Deputy Attorney General. At what level is that impediment? Is that impediment? I'm not an attorney. I'm not a prosecutor. Is that impediment? Is that impeding our law enforcement efforts? If so, what are we going to do about it? Is she crossing the line? So I'm working with the Department of Justice and finding out where is that line that they cross. So maybe AOC is going to be in trouble now, but I need the AOG to opine on that. But because there's impediment is impediment, in my opinion. I'm not a prosecutor, but we need some further guidance on that. But again, if we have to take every federal dollar out of the city, we'll do it. I mean, we're done. This is.
You hear that? Letitia's going to take all your money away. AOC, your constituents aren't going to have their fat checks from the federal government. All those federal government programs gone. Pam Bondi has cut them off, and they're going to keep slashing if you guys don't get with the program. He spoke to Pam, and listen to Pam, because Pam has now put Letitia James, Kathy Hochul, and the head of the DMV on notice. They are being sued by the Attorney General, one Pam Bondi, for their greenlit laws, which are in total violation of federal laws.
And if you don't comply with federal law, we will hold you accountable. We did it to Illinois. Strike one. Strike two is New York. And if you are a state not complying with federal law, you're next. Get ready. And the great men and women of law enforcement are standing behind me today. We have FBI, DEA, ATF agents. They put their lives on the line every single day to protect us. And what New York has, they have green light laws, meaning they're giving a green light to any illegal alien in New York where law enforcement officers cannot check their identity if they pull them over. Law enforcement officers do not have access to their background. And if these great men and women pull over someone and don't have access to their background, they have no idea who they're dealing with. And it puts their lives on the line every single day. Violent criminals, gang members, drug traffickers, human smugglers will no longer terrorize the American people. And that is why we are here today. You will be held accountable if you do not follow federal law. It's over, it ends, and we're coming after you.
Boom, okay? And she's got the backing of the federal courts, and she's got the backing, if it needs to get this far, of the Supreme Court, because the feds have the power here. I mean, why do you think Texas was going through everything it was going through? Governor Abbott was tearing his hair out because he wanted the wall up, and Biden wanted the wall down. And because the feds have control over the borders, Abbott didn't have a leg to stand on, and that was not fair for Texas right at the time, but that's the law, guys, okay? And guess what? The other team is in charge now.
We're here today because we have filed charges against the state of New York. We have filed charges against Kathy Hochul. We have filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, who is with DMV. This is a new DOJ, and we are taking steps to protect Americans, American citizens, and angel moms, like the mom standing right behind me, who you're going to hear from in a moment.
Yep. Okay, so they are trying to protect the citizens of New York, and Letitia James only wants to protect the illegal citizens of New York. I mean, they are on the wrong side of everything here. They don't want to save taxpayers' money. They want to protect illegals rather than legals. This is adding up to a giant catastrophe for the Democrat Party. A new poll just published shows that Donald Trump has a 53% approval rating. That is massive, okay? That means more than half the country loves what he's doing. And guess what? 70% of the country said, hey, he's following through on his promises. That matters, right? Imagine a politician following through on the promises. And so what's happening? Oh, you got all kinds of officials dropping like flies. Look at this. The Social Security head has resigned because it seems they're finding out that the Social Security Administration did not do a very good job keeping its rolls clean. Elon Musk was tweeting yesterday about like people who were clearly vampires, 150, 160, 180, 300 years old that were still within the system. So they're trying to clean up all that. And she's resigning, saying that she doesn't want DOGE having access to all of this information. On top of that, you got the guy who was in charge of food. A lot of good he did us, right? We had all those, and still have, all of these horrible preservatives in our food. Don't get me started. I was just over in Europe, whole different ball game there, okay? They don't have all this junk in their food. And you know what? They have better health as a result. So why do we have all this junk in our food? Well, guess who's going to fix that? RFK Jr., Mr. Healthy himself, right? Make America healthy again. And the guy who's in charge of food at the FDA, Jim Jones, he's resigning. He does not like what's going on. It's a whole new ballgame. And then you get Danielle Sassoon, who's there in New York, and she's this, look at the headline in the New York Times. Danielle R. Sassoon, Manhattan's interim U.S. attorney, built a life of conservative values and amassed a daunting resume. So she is a never-Trumper. And she is quitting, they say, an ambitious prosecutor quitting rather than doing Trump's bidding, to which I say, good. You know what? Let the trash take itself out. Bye-bye. Bye. All right? We're not going to miss you, because people actually need to care about protecting the citizens of America and saving the citizens and tax-paying citizens of America from this graft. And if you can't do that, then why do we want you there in the first place? You can all retire, okay? You're going to retire or get fired. So take your pick. You can't sit there and fly in the face of the law, okay? You just can't do it. So this is a good thing. And the Democrats are continuing to look like fools. It's just sort of rather amazing. Donald Trump saying today that it's got to end. This abuse has got to end. I want to go to some sound of him just coming into us now.
Where's the money being spent, right? Let's go into that for just a second. $520 million for a consultant on the environment. It's called Environmental, Social, and Governance. Investments in Africa and mobilize private sector resources. $520 million. Somebody got $520 million for an environmental, sounds like an environmental study. I've always been one that paid a lot of money for my environmental studies, but I paid like $50,000, not $520 million. $520 million for ESG. $25 million to promote biodiversity, conservation, and promote licit livelihoods by developing socially responsible behavior in the country of Colombia. Well, it's nice, $25 million to go into Colombia for something that nobody ever heard of. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. $40 million. $42 million for Johns Hopkins, great place, to research and drive social and behavior change in Uganda. $42 million. What about us? What about social change in our country? $70 million for a center at Purdue to research university-sourced, evidence-based solutions to developmental challenges. I mean, these are massive numbers on things that nobody ever heard about. $10 million for Mozambique voluntary medical male circumcisions. $10 million for circumcisions in another country. $9.7 million for UC Berkeley to develop a cohort of Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills. In other words, let's teach them something about enterprise. What about our people? Can't we teach them about enterprise? $2.3 million for strengthening independent voices in Cambodia.
Wow.
$32 million to the Prague Civil Society Center, which is a very liberal group of people. Wonder how much of that money came back to the people that approved it. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $486 million to the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening, including $22 million for inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova, and $21 million for voter turnout in India. Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there because their tariffs are so high. I have a lot of respect for India. I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister. He just left, as you know, 2 days ago. But we're giving $21 million for voter turnout. It's voter turnout in India. What about, voter turnout here? Oh, we've done that, I guess. We did $500 million, didn't we? It's called the lockboxes.
That's great.
$20 million for fiscal federalism in Nepal. Listen to these numbers. This is all fraud. $19 million for biodiversity conservation in Nepal. $1.5 million for voter confidence. We want to give them confidence in Liberia. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $2.5 million for inclusive democracies in South Africa, $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well. They're doing a lot better than we do in the schools, aren't they? $2 million to develop sustainable recycling models to increase socioeconomic cohesion among marginalized communities in Kosovo and Eskali and in Egypt.
Unbelievable.
We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. Yeah. I could, by the way, I could read this all day long. I could go on all day long, and you'll see hundreds of billions of dollars.
Right? I mean, this is outrageous, you guys. And think about what the left is doing. They are trying to stand in the way. Letitia James saying that he can't do this, that somehow we don't have a right to know where all of this money is going. This was her deal.
No one elected Elon Musk and his minions, and no one has allowed him to have access to this information. This is a violation of the separation of powers. The United States Congress, the United States Senate, has the sole discretion in having the power of the purse, and not Elon Musk. We are here today to seek a...
And she went on about how he didn't have the right to look at all of our data. M. Fortune, thank you. I'm going to get to some of your comments. Chris, thank you very much. Yes, we should have gifted memberships, I guess. Fly, thank you as well. Judge Chutkan rejects the call from Democrat AGs for this temporary restraining order. So guess what? DOGE is having a party, and we are finding out where all our money has been going. And listen, they're not stopping with that. Mary Carroll, thank you so much. They are not stopping with that, you guys. They're moving on. They're moving on to Fort Knox. Right? I mean, Donald Trump's like, there's all this fraud. Elon's like, okay, so, the U.S. is supposed to be the biggest holder of gold. I want to know where it is. I want to see it. And he's joined in this effort by Ron Paul and son, Senator Rand Paul. Listen to Rand.
Well, I've been trying to go down and see the gold, make sure it's all there for about 10 years. During the first Trump administration, I got permission. You have to get permission all the way up to the Secretary of Treasury. And then the Secretary of Treasury said, well, I want to go down there too. And then he said, I want to go down there when the eclipse is coming through Kentucky too, so I can see the eclipse and the gold at the same time. But they came when I wasn't there. So I tried for 10 years. I set up the appointment. And then because they wanted to see the eclipse, they changed the appointment. I didn't get to go down. But the Secretary of Treasury and the senior senator from Kentucky did go down and attest that they believe they saw the gold down there.
So what do you think the problem is?
I think some of them may not think it needs to be audited all the time, but I think the more sunlight, the better, more transparency, the better. Yeah. And also it brings attention to the fact that gold still has value, and implicitly, not explicitly, but implicitly, gold still gives value to the dollar. Yeah. That's why we don't get rid of it. We've got it. The IMF has it. The World Bank has it. Most of the central banks around the world have gold, and it's an implicit trust that the dollar still has some backing.
Very true. By the way, I love gold. You guys know that. $425 billion in gold at Fort Knox. And he's like, hey, let's audit it. Let's make sure it's really there. When we see all this money going all over the world, we just want to make sure that we got what we got. And nobody's checked this in years and years and years and years. Nobody's actually audited it. So this is important too, right? It's all in the name of transparency. You got $525 billion, nearly $500 billion there at Fort Knox. We ought to know about it. And this seems like a logical time for me to plug one of our great show sponsors on here, right? We actually have the head of American Heart for Gold coming on the show this Thursday. So I'm going to ask him about Fort Knox. I mean, this is amazing. By the way, gold's been going way up. So it's been a very good investment, shall we say. Very, very good investment. Right now, you can get up to $15,000 in free silver if you use my name. Use my name, go to trishlovesgold.com. Make sure you use my name, or just text right now. Get out your little phone and go 65532 and text my name, Trish, to 65532. too. You can call them at 1-844-495-1115. Again, 1-844-495-1115. You know, if you own this stuff yourself, you really know that you got it, right? And there's some benefit in that, shall we say. And they offer those different options for you guys. So check it out. Again, silver often moves in tandem, if you would, with gold. And I just want to actually check gold prices today because I was so busy with all this news. I'm usually like in it and watching gold every single day because if it ever goes below a certain amount, I try and buy it. But oh my gosh, wow, okay, it's at nearly $3,000 an ounce. Wow, 2,954. I had not seen that. I'm very glad I have the gold I have, shall we say. Very, very glad. Again, Elon wants to make sure that we all in the United States of America have the gold we think we have. Call my friends if you're interested. 65532. You can text my name, Trish, to 65532. Unbelievable stuff. Also, if you're interested in gold, you know what? We talk about gold a lot at 76 Research. I'm going to give you that as well. Use code word dollar so you can get the 76 report for just $1 a month for the first 2 months, and it goes to $9.95. But great information in there for you, and a lot of stocks as well that we talk about. So I encourage you guys to do that. Wow. I mean, that's a big deal. $2,954 an ounce, you guys. There's a huge realignment going on, if you would. I mean, like for years, right? It seemed like Russia was the threat, and that's what we were focused on, and the Middle East, and this, that, and the other. And all of a sudden today, Marco Rubio says some stuff that really has everybody scratching their head, right? There's this new path on Ukraine. It looks like things are going to get settled there. This is unbelievable. So like we're reshifting our whole relationship with Russia. And he said, Marco did, our Secretary of State, you know what? We might want to take advantage of this opportunity, this realignment right now to actually align ourselves with Russia. And I'm like, am I hearing things? I mean, we're talking change, even when it comes to this foreign policy where we're like, Europe, you know, you're kind of like focused on the wrong thing. Maybe this is because we need to reorient towards the bigger threat, which might be China. And do you really want to drive Russia straight into China's arms? I don't think so. I think there's like a higher level chess thing going on right now. And Marco gets it. He's always been a China hawk. Trump obviously gets it. Elon gets it. Everyone gets it except for the Dems, shall we say. Here's Marco.
But ultimately, the Russian side will be indispensable to this effort, and so that process will begin. And then the third is, together with those other two, is beginning to engage in identifying the extraordinary opportunities that exist should this conflict come to a acceptable end, the credible opportunities that exist to partner with the Russians geopolitically on issues of common interest, and frankly economically on issues that hopefully will be good for the world and will also improve our relations in the long term between these two important countries.
Did you hear that? There are issues that we can align ourselves with. This is an important economic opportunity. We need to take advantage of this and realign. I mean, that is a headline, ladies and gentlemen, and you can imagine the left is flipping out. I mean, between the news they got on Elon and now Marco saying this, there's more. I want to play it for you.
For 3.5 years while this conflict has raged, or 3 years while it's raged, no one else has been able to bring something together like what we saw today, because Donald Trump is the only leader in the world that can. So no one is being sidelined here. But President Trump is in a position that he campaigned on to initiate a process that could bring about an end to this conflict. And from that could emerge some very positive things for the United States, for Europe, for Ukraine, for the world. But first it begins by the end of this conflict. And so the only thing President Trump's trying to do is bring about peace. It's what he campaigned on. It's something the world should be thanking President Trump for doing. He's been able to achieve what for 2.5, 3 years, no one else has been able to achieve, which is to begin this process, a serious process. Obviously, a lot of work remains before we have a result, but President Trump's the only one that can do it.
Wow. Okay, so this conflict seems to be coming to an end. A lot of people thinking again that we're trying to reorient and shift strategy away. I look at what's going on with Ukraine, it kind of feels like we're getting 50%, by the way. We're getting 50% of any of the future profits that come out of their mineral mining assets. So it sort of seems like it's like us and Russia taking it over. Maybe we're like less of a threat than NATO. But listen to the Russian ambassador speaking on this. When Donald Trump and Putin had their phone call, he said this was like amazing, revolutionary, and yeah, this thing is coming to an end.
Yesterday, after the phone call between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, are you more hopeful now that there can be real and fundamental change and improvement in U.S.-Russian relations?
What struck me was that now the entire world is in a state of shock, viewing the phone conversation and the news about it as something extraordinary. This shows to what extent the staff of the Biden administration, led by their president and their European satellites, have abandoned dialogue and diplomacy as a method of communication with the outside world, opting instead for threats, sanctions, and the arming of the regime in Kiev to wage war against the Russian Federation.
So it looks as though all of this is changing, and it's changing really fast. So you can imagine the mainstream media is not very happy about this, in part because, as Donald Trump read off all those contracts, you wonder how much they were affected by some of those contracts. They were certainly flipping out over this one. You see J.D. Vance just met with the leader of Germany's far-right party. I mean, it's kind of weird that they see her as so far-right, especially given her background. If you look at Perplexity, they point out she's gay, and she worked at Goldman Sachs, Bank of China, Alliance Global Investors. Okay, so she comes from sort of this Wall Street background. She's married to another woman. They have 2 sons. She doesn't exactly seem like, the far right, but they're going to go with that because it's expedient, I guess. So they're flipping out that he has a meeting with her. I'm telling you, it's all shifting. It's all shifting in real time, you guys. This is amazing. And you know what? The mainstream media doesn't like it. And I think that's had a big part to do with Margaret Brennan, mainstream media, CBS News, Face the Nation, pushing Rubio. She is shocked that he would dare meet with this woman.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship was specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
No. Not exactly an accurate reflection, but perhaps the only reflection the mainstream media can default to in this moment of time, in their absolute state of panic, is everything that they have built up over the last however many years. I think a lot of this started, frankly, with Barack Obama. All of this is getting undone. Boy, it was on steroids for the last 4 years because Biden was asleep at the switch. I guess you could take whatever you wanted under him. Quick shout out to our friends at Balance of Nature. Thank you for the nice compliments on the pink dress, you guys. Thank you. Yeah, I'm shiny today. Listen, in all seriousness, I was just saying to my husband this morning, I was singing. As I got ready, because I went to the opera the other day, so the singing chops are coming back, and I was singing some operatic aria, Mi chiamano Mimi, actually from La Boheme. And he was like, wow, you just sound great, and da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'll do an album. And I said, finally, because I'm not sick this year. This is the first year ever in as long as I can remember, probably since 2020, when we all got locked up and so you didn't see anyone and therefore you weren't sick. I have not been sick in forever. So I have to credit, the only thing that I've changed in my life is my Balance of Nature, in all seriousness. So Balance of Nature, thank you. They're one of the sponsors of this show. We thank them for that. I thank them for keeping me healthy, knock on wood. And yes, I'm going to actually come out with an album. Maybe this spring. I love singing, right? It was what I did before I ever got into finance or news. So Balance of Nature, my fruits and veggies every single day. You can take them to code word Trish, you guys. Code word Trish. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. Obviously, you get 35% off. You get free shipping. Just go to balanceofnature.com. Use code word Trish. You help the show. You help me. And of course, you help yourself. Oh, we got a lot of news, do we not? I mean, this is amazing. Did you see Donald Trump and Elon Musk on Hannity? This was true. So the media is so threatened by these two people. And they know that they both have egos, right? And everybody knows Donald Trump. I mean, hey, if you're going to be president, you certainly have to have an ego. He certainly has an ego, but it's a healthy ego. And I think he keeps it in check in that he wants to be surrounded by people that are smart and can get the job done. And Elon is one of those people. But what is the mainstream media doing? They are trying to tear the two of them apart. So they're constantly publicizing this and that and the other about Elon in hopes that Donald Trump will get a little upset and maybe that will cause a rift. But guess what? Elon and Trump, they're onto him. Watch, this is just an amazing clip on Hannity last night.
You have to be keenly aware that the media and the punditry class, not that, I think you've proven they have no power anymore because they threw everything they had at you and they didn't win. And that was, the New York Times, Washington Post, 3 networks, every late night comedy show, 2 cable channels. They threw everything, lawfare, weaponization. Sure. And now I see they want you two to start, they want a divorce. They want you two to start hating each other. And they try, President Elon Musk, for example. You do know that they're doing that to you.
Oh, I see it all the time. They tried it, then they stopped. That wasn't, they have many different things of hatred. Actually, Elon called me. He said, they're trying to drive us apart. I said, absolutely. They said, we have breaking news. Donald Trump has ceded control of the presidency to Elon Musk. President Musk will be attending a cabinet meeting tonight at 8 o'clock. And I say, It's just so obvious. They're so bad at it. I used to think they were good at it. They're actually bad at it, because if they were good at it, I'd never be president. Because I think nobody in history has ever gotten more bad publicity than me. I could do the greatest things. I get 98% bad publicity. I could do, outside of you and a few of your very good friends, it's like the craziest thing. But you know what I have learned, Elon? The people are smart. They get it.
Yeah, they do, actually.
They get it. They really see what's happening.
Yes.
And you guys are correct. It is on actually tonight. I'm getting ahead of myself because they were running clips of it last night. So that was one of the clips to promote the big interview, which is tonight. But this is just amazing. These guys get it, right? They know totally. They totally know what's going on. And they're not going to let it deter them. That's important. There's a mission that has to happen, that is happening. And they're doing it like one thing after another. They're cutting the fat out of this crazy budget. For goodness sakes, did you see some of the DEI stuff? $8 million. Think of this, going to this Department of Education propaganda for the good old Equity Express agenda. In sports, this is unbelievable to me. You got Coach One, this is not what you're supposed to say when the parent is kind of upset about the DEI stuff, because their daughter has to race against a naturally born male, and you're not supposed to give any kind of answer other than Coach Response 3, which is, there is no way for a woman's body to be. Excuse me? There's no way for a woman's body to be, other than it is female and a woman. Plus, transgender athletes' bodies vary in athletic ability just as cisgender athletes' bodies do, including transgender athletes. I'm sorry, guys. You know what? I hate to go back to Bio 101, but just to be very graphic, people who are born males, they actually have a lot of years of building testosterone that girls don't have because they're different hormones. And you're not going to let the girls go take testosterone supplements, and yet they're competing against people that were born as boys. Trump is putting an end to all of this, an end to all of it. And yet the left is out there with, they got a new production of Jesus Christ Superstar, and they're casting a woman as Jesus Christ, a lesbian African-American woman as Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ Superstar. So they aren't getting the memo here. The DEI stuff, it's gone, it's done, it's over. Boeing said goodbye to DEI. Disney got rid of its 2 DEI departments. They get some hangover there with the entertainment scripts, etc. I think Captain America, who isn't really rah-rah America, they still have a few things going on. But most companies, they've said no more. Walmart's another. You know what? Because the DEI stuff, it doesn't work. You know, we're a meritocracy, so we just want to put the best people in the seat and get the job done. But Hollywood still doesn't get it, so they have put in Cynthia Erivo to play Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar at the Hollywood Bowl. Production begins in August for all those interested. I'm sure you're not. So what's that about? She knows the play. She's actually played Mary Magdalene before, but she had to up it up. You know, she's like pushing it up a notch. She's Jesus Christ now, because Jesus Christ is a woman, a black lesbian woman. I mean, guys, okay, like enough. I see you have a lot that you need to work through. Here's this thing that they were pushing. They gave all millions of dollars, Department of Education. This thing was in like 13 public schools. Whiteness is a powerful construct with historical, institutionalized, structural, emotional, and psychic dimensions that are embedded in a radicalized structure of power, privilege, oppression, and exclusion. All right. So if you're white, we don't like you. You are the problem. This is what they were teaching kids. I mean, this is messed up, okay? This is another DEI thing, right? The Zoom things. JP Morgan is saying no more Zoom calls. But back to Cynthia for just a moment. So Cynthia kind of has a chip on her shoulder. And how do I know that? Oh, well, I saw her in Wicked. By the way, not a great voice. And again, I say this as a classically trained opera singer who will appreciate music for music's sake and has nothing to do with anything other than how she sounds. She is a belter. There's not a lot of sweetness there in the voice, the timbre of the voice. I actually do not care for. And I will say this, I thought that the actress that sang the part of Glinda, and you know, she's certainly no Day at the Beach, she did a much, much better job. She was just fundamentally more talented as a musician. But Cynthia, she has a lot of these, you know, hang-ups. Cynthia Erivo, she called out fans because one of the fans who liked the original production of Wicked way back when tried to do a mock-up of the new poster. And apparently in the mock-up, he hit her face because, by the way, look at the original. So if you're looking at this is a Deadline article that I'm showing you. It has the original photo and then it has the mock-up photo, and she was really angry about it. And so she like basically said, no, I got to fix this. See his mock-up on the left versus her mock-up on the right. She's like, I'm going to put this right here. Let me remind you and cleanse your palate. She's saying like, how dare you take my eyes out of this? And she of course thinks it's some kind of racially tinged whatever. But the truth is that he was actually just trying to go for the original poster, because in the original poster, when the thing first came out, however many years ago, and you had the woman who actually was in Frozen, her name escapes me, and then that Kristen Chenoweth, they were in the poster and you can see that the eyes are covered. So like it wasn't some kind of derogatory thing towards her, but she's running around with a chip on her shoulder. Maybe because everybody's been telling her this, that, and the other about whiteness. I don't know. But she definitely is carrying a grudge. And somehow that grudge will be alleviated by playing Jesus Christ in the Jesus Christ Superstar rendition at the Hollywood Bowl this August. Coming to you, my gosh, woohoo. Unbelievable, right? I'm going to go back to what the Palantir CEO, forgive me, Alex Karp. These guys just don't get it.
Look, what I don't like about what's going on is I just view this as, well, let's watch the Democratic Party commit suicide. And like, I've been a Democrat most of my life. I kind of view myself as outside it, but I don't like watching the Democrats just commit suicide. And what I see is most of the country doesn't really, at this point, given the fraud, waste, and abuse we know is there, 90% of the country is like, get rid of that fraud, waste, and abuse. And I just view this as yet another example of the progressive left boxing themselves into a suicide dance. Now, what the progressive left should be doing is saying, okay, Elon.
So again, if you're talking about DOGE and their spending cuts or DEI nonsense and putting a woman in as Jesus Christ in Jesus Christ Superstar, you know what? The public's not there with you. They're just not. Okay, that is like the minority of people. So the Democrats right now are actually just trying to appeal to a teeny minority of people that kind of have a grudge on their shoulder, I guess, a grudge to carry, like this Cynthia Erivo. I mean, I'm sorry, but you know what? Let's move on, okay? Let's move on collectively together. Let's like not divide each other. Let's actually collectively say, we want the best for America. We want the best for our kids. We don't want our taxpayer dollars going to nonsense like you've been sending it. For goodness sakes, trans comic books in Peru, $2 million to gender surgeries in Guatemala. Like, why? Can I ask you guys why? Why would they do that? I'm troubled by it. My colleague at 76 Research, you know Rob Horton, sometimes he comes on the show. You can follow us actually over at 76. We have a YouTube channel, very small, at 76 Research. Anyway, he had a theory on it. He's like, they got to employ people, right? Rob's really smart, by the way. Look at our portfolio. Check this out. Energy stocks up 32%. I mean, amazing. Lots of good names in there. I encourage you to go to 76research.com, you guys, 76research.com, and use code word dollar because you can get at least the 76 report. If you're interested in model portfolios, check those out as well. I've got that here. Click on the model portfolios because 10 to 15 stocks in each one of them. And again, you can see here at 76research.com how well this portfolio is doing. But anyway, Rob was saying he has a theory that like they're just trying to employ everyone, right? They've got to find jobs for all of these people. They've created this giant machine in this transgender studies unit. And what are you going to do with all those PhDs other than give them jobs at NGOs? I don't know, but like there's something really, really messed up about all of it for sure. Again, gold hitting nearly $3,000 an ounce. We actually have a report coming on 76research.com about that very soon because it's just amazing when you see this run up in gold. And, you know, they're going to go audit Fort Knox. So gold is definitely going up under the threat that maybe they're going to find something, I hope not there. Anyway, up to $15,000 in free silver. Text Trish, TRISH, to 65532. This is one of our great show sponsors, American Hartford Gold. The CEO is coming on the show on Thursday. But wow, okay? Like, wow, this is great. This is transparency. This is what Americans wanted. This is what we are demanding. We always wanted it. We just never had anybody that could follow through. And then lo and behold, you team up Trump and Elon together and wow, right? Wow, good things happen. Thank you guys. Alan, I see that 4,000. Amazing. I want to thank Chris and Flyed, did I say your name right there, or your handle, for all your generosity. Really, really great to have you here. Good to see Jake back in the house. Peace of my mind as always. Thank you guys. Really thank you. We are growing and growing and growing here on this channel, and it is because you are committed like me. No marketing. This is all organic, right? So make sure you like, share with your friends, have a comment or two below. I do actually read them. I don't always respond, but I try to read them every single night. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you live here, back again with more news tomorrow.